Morning, 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 and welcome to another episode of Let's Unpack That with ReiDefine Wellness. I have in studio with me today, Latoya.
Hey, hey, hey. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Thanks for having me again another week, early morning risers. And for those who can't join us so early in the morning, we definitely have a rerun of the Let's Unpack That with ReiDefine Wellness on my radio 580 AM. We miss Big G up in here, but we are now big folks who can hold down the platform for ourselves, right, Eric?
Yes, well, we're definitely trying to do that.
Well, with the technological issues, it's never, we never feel like we're experts. Remember, we're older folks. If we had if we had our kids up in here, they would have known exactly what to do and how to do it. So we're giving grace to ourselves. But happy Father's Day to everybody out there who's listening to my radio 580 AM this morning, but also to any person who subscribes to the role of being a dad or ascribes to the role of being a dad. We salute you this morning. Happy Father's Day, Alric.
Thank you, Latoya. And it's amazing that we're on the show this morning on Father's Day, because yesterday I attended an event put on by the Resilient Immigrant Foundation for Fathers. And it was just an amazing mix of energy in the room last night. So shout out to Chidi and your team for putting that on.
Eric is being modest. I have to cut him off. Eric is being modest. So Eric was a nominee for Father's Day Award, and out of several nominees, Eric was among 3 persons to win in that category and to be awarded yesterday. So shout out, sound the alarm for Mr. Eric, please. Sound the alarm. Thank you. This morning, folks, we're very happy. I'm trying to take the lead because we want to keep Eric in the hot seat. Mm-hmm. And we have with us, who will be joining us, Steve. I think Steve is joining us by phone.
He's on the line. I'm trying to figure out how to get him. Can you turn the volume up on that one?
For sure.
Can you hear us, Steve?
Did you pipe him in already?
Yep, he's already in.
Hey, Steve, can you hear us?
Okay.
Well, why don't we carry on until we can figure out the technological issues?
Alright.
The line is no longer lighting up.
It's no longer lighting up.
So we're not sure what may have happened there, but we are thankful for today. The weather is going to get to a high of 21 today. Mm-hmm. It has been a week. There are lots of people who are complaining. I see so many videos that are going around of men. Steve is back on. Let's see what's happening there.
Okay, can you hear us now, Steve? I think he can hear us. We just can't hear him.
Where is Big G when we need him, man? My Lord.
Oh, goodness.
I think we're doing something wrong. I think we're not fully familiar with this.
That's okay. That's okay. Well,
you know what?
We'll ride.
We'll ride.
We'll ride this morning.
We'll ride.
Thank you for trying to be on this morning with us, Steve. And just as a clarification, he wanted to be with us today. He thought that the show was in the evening, and so he graciously asked for us to call him in. And now technology is technologying.
Why don't we be resilient and play a song and then try to resolve this technological issue, and then we'll see how we can get Steve on.
Okay.
So why don't we go to a break, listen to some Father's Day music, and we will be right back with you. Welcome back. This is an adventure, This is such a great adventure for us to learn and to pivot and navigate. We're both former educators, and now we're mental health providers. Nobody told us we'll be in radio, navigating radio boards and all kinds of stuff. So what would be a great show without some hiccups? And We've resolved them, hopefully, and we have Steve joining us. Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Whoa, look at us.
Let us sound the horn for that one. Let's applause.
Great job, guys. I've been listening.
You
Great
were
job.
listening, Steve. I don't think you understand what goes on behind the scenes over here, you know? I have so much respect for people in radio world. I have so much respect for Greg because this is nerve-wracking, you know? So Steve, welcome to the show. Let's unpack that with ReiDefine Wellness. We're really, really happy to have you. I know that because I know that it's a lot of sacrifice for you to be here based on what is happening behind the scenes. So we're happy that we were able to pivot to ensure that you were able to join us today.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Definitely. And just to give listeners in Radioland a background, is it okay if I share how resilient you are in being here today, Steve?
Well, can we get him to introduce himself first?
Well, yeah, let's do that.
Who is
let's
Steve?
Do that.
Hey, listen, happy Fathers to all the fathers out there.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's I can't say enough. Being a father myself, it's as you move forward into fatherhood, it never ends, right? Because you have to now change with the times as you move forward, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been in Edmonton for a while. Jamaican born, migrated to Canada, and you know, just it's been an experience and an ongoing experience. So
awesome. And Steve, why you being so modest? You can't big up Ebony Studio. You can't just big up over there.
You know what? You know what? I have to bring up my Ebony crew, my team that I have over there. Who, you know, we see so many different people, so many different cultures, and we learn so much. And now we don't see anything in black and white. We see everything in gray.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Steve, tell the people what Ebony Studio is about now.
Ebony Studio, it was one of the first black salons that was in Edmonton. It was the first one. It was called Ebony and Ivory. So it was a black and white keys and a piano. So it represented colors coming together. And the first owner, Shirley Romani, bless her heart, she had retired. And I told her, she told me to break off and just do like a part 2 of Ebony and Ivory. So I called Ebony Hair Studio. And the reason why I chose studio, because in the studio, there's different kind of genres of music that you make in the studio, from country to hip hop to reggae to all kinds of music go to the studio. And I thought, you know what? I'll use the studio to see if a lot of people come to the shop to represent the music. So whether it be black, white, whether it be from a different country, different continent, they all come to the shop. And, you know, so we represent the people that we hear that we do and learn from them as we do their hair, where they're from, their struggles, why did they come here. And it's been an adventure and still is.
Well, we're sounding the
air horn for that.
Horn for you, Steve. We're sounding, Steve. We're happy to hear that because, especially with a hair studio, I think I've visited your hair studio on a few occasions. I've met you on a few occasions, and it's always a breath of fresh air when I come through the studio. So I just want to announce today that you and Alaric are in the spotlight. I am going to be the host. Eric is normally the co-host. Today he's not presenting as a co-host. He's presenting as a guest. But, you know, I want to get your views. This past week, there have been quite a few men sharing videos of being disgruntled about the kind of attention paid to Father's Day and how they feel slighted. There's a call to cancel Father's Day if it's going to be such poor attention paid to it. And I empathize and I agree in so many ways, because as I looked for programs and events to support Alaric for his Father's Day with my own kiddos, I was like, oh my gosh, where are all the events? Where are all the excitement surrounding Father's Day? What are your guys' views on that?
You want to take that first, Steve?
Do you know what? Well, first, I would like to say that every day's Father's Day, every day's Mother's Day.
Yeah.
So, I think Father's Day, it's not that it was never on the forefront. I just think that because what's happening in the world, a lot of things are getting pushed back. You know, so there's so much more happening now that we forget our role sometimes as mothers, as fathers, as, you know, being supporters, you know. And I personally, I think that it's just a matter of one person saying, you know what, let me just change the narrative and say, you know what, Father's Day is going to do this, let's do this, or let's do something to uplift it. Because if nothing is advertised uplift as it should, it's going to go down. Because mothers get their praise, and so well deserved, because, you know, there are some mothers today who we can say Happy Father's Day too, because they're also a mom and a dad. Don't forget that, the single moms, right? But I do see where some fathers would feel that way. But I like to say, you know, to all the fathers out there that, you know, Father's Day is every day, and you know what you're doing from your heart as a father to make sure your child, you know, go through this world a better person. You know, that in itself is, you know, is self-fulfilling.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I find it very, very funny that you brought that up, Latoya, because last night as we were at that event, one of the things that came up was that even fathers schedule themselves out of Father's Day.
Oh.
Because because even us sometimes forget that Father's Day is coming up, right? It's not so much that we don't value what we do, but sometimes we get so caught up in fulfilling the duties that the planning piece, which typically, to be honest, in my house, and I have to shout out Latoya, she does an amazing job in bringing the planning pieces together. I drop the ball a lot of times on that. And so sometimes it's a matter of being so focused on trying to do the little things that we forget that this particular thing is coming up. It's the same sometimes with birthdays, right? Sometimes we forget our own birthdays because we're so focused on getting stuff done. But it's a matter of understanding that regardless of what that is, we're out here trying to ensure that the next generation of children grow up to be even better than we were.
I love the perspectives that you guys are sharing. So I'm going to be devil's advocate here because, one, if fathers can schedule out the days, the memorable, the day to celebrate them, right? Doesn't that speak then to the chronic issue of the Father's Day being an add-on, which is the point that many fathers are talking about? And then, Steve, you mentioned mothers, you know, single mothers being told that or being recognized on Father's Day. But there are lots of single fathers as well. And usually there isn't a highlight for those dads on Mother's Day. We don't usually say Happy Mother's Day to the single fathers out there. You know, we don't usually do that. So does that then speak to the nuances of, you know, fathering being a disappearing piece in the world? I don't want to say peace, but I couldn't find a better word on the spot.
So that's a very loaded question.
Yeah, but
no, here's the thing. Especially in this world. Imagine walking up to a guy on Mother's Day and saying Happy Mother's Day. That probably won't go down very well, right? I understand the sentiment behind it, especially if they're a single dad trying to hold down a family. But
But Eric, the truth is, we made cards on Father's Day. We made cards, or we went home and said to our moms, especially when you're in a single parent home, happy Father's Day, mommy.
Yeah.
Thank you for being, my daddy isn't there. Thank you for being there. Like, how much does that happen with a single parent father?
Not a lot.
Who is combing the hair, is holding down the fort. I know a lot of single dads, and they do a lot. They're not recognized on Father's Day, and they're certainly not recognized on Mother's Day. So where do we hold space in the world? Although we don't need honoring for the roles that we do, where do we hold space in the world for these people to feel valued? Because we put so much focus on women and falling apart and holding them together, as we should, but how do we humanize men as well?
I think that conversation is a deep one that needs to be had. We need to have a paradigm shift where that's concerned, because really, I believe that men need to be celebrated. Everyone in Jamaica, there's a phrase that says encouragement sweetens labor, right? Labor, yes. Yeah, and I believe that too often the efforts of men, especially good dads, right? Because in Jamaica we also have this term called sperm donor, where guys just go around having kids for the sake of having kids, right? And the kids don't really know them, right? They grow up without that dad figure in the home. And so when you have someone who is actually making an effort to show up day in, day out, as Steve said, every day is Mother's Day, every day is Father's Day. And when you have someone who's willing to show up and show out for their kids and putting in the effort, then I agree with you on this one, Latoya, that, there should be a celebration of that type of thing. Not only because they're doing their job, but that also shows other fathers that, listen, what you're doing will not go, or what you should be doing will not go unnoticed, and your kids will be appreciative of that.
And there you go, hitting the nail on the head.
Yes.
There you go, hitting the nail on the head. And we have people in Facebook land. We have quite a few folks in the chat who have been sharing. So Big G over there enjoying his soursop in Jamaica is greeting the fathers and sharing the sentiment that Father's Day is like an add-on, and here he is sharing what I'm talking about. Why is it that folks never mention the single dads? And then Akila McKenna she's saying she thinks it's rooted in history. That it's intentional to forget fathers, but rather the habit and customs were forcefully created. We couldn't create customs of celebrating fathers because of the sad history of fathers' lack of presence, which is something that you're touching on right now. This is real talk, folks. This is real talk. So she says, remember, if we go back in history, men were being unalived, not by choice, but then also other reasons, as feeling pressured, not having knowledge of how to father. So that's a very loaded piece that goes back to if we talk about the history, the historical context, even from a Caribbean or Black perspective, that really highlights it. Ajibola is in the comment section as well. He has a quote, ducks flying slippers. So Father's Day celebration is just like how fathers generally are. They take pride in doing and leaving the celebrations to speak for itself. It seldom does. I bet it would be better celebrated if it's Husband's Day.
And
we're going in for a break.
Yes.
Well, welcome back. Are you there, Steve?
Yes, I am.
Steve, we're heating up in here. I had to take a sip of water because the topic is so hot and the feedback is alive. And what we ended with, which Alric spoke about and you kind of mentioned, is the changing of the narrative, right? And there's always the excuse that men don't know how to do. we see so many narratives of women saying, oh, that they didn't know how to do this and they didn't know how to do that. And that seems to be an excuse for inactivity, right? And I remember when I was younger, I grew up in, my family is very matriarchal, but even the men that were there in the family is almost like they were flies on the wall. And the only thing that was their role is, wait till your father comes. You're going to get the spanking. So fathers were seen as just the enforcers of discipline. So as it relates to a lot of things like the fine-tuning, the emotional connection with the children, it was never there. Do you think it's an excuse for men to say, I don't know, so I won't? Do you think that this new generation of fathers are like the old that didn't activate themselves, or do you think that things are really changing?
I think things are changing, but it's a slow process because everything is generational. Because you just described how men are perceived, and as it comes down, now we have the tools and technology, and we have in our hand one of the greatest tools that we can log on to and see why things were the way they were, because people are now talking about it, writing about it, and taking us back in history why certain things were. Yeah. So if not for us to break certain things and start anew.
Yeah. I think making the excuse that, especially in this day and age of not knowing how to do something, it's kind of old, right? Because everyone has access, as you said, Steve, to information at their fingertips. But it's just like we tell the kids use the technology and we say to them, when we were younger, we had to go to the library to get books, to travel this far, and we had to get the encyclopedia, and now it's on Google. Yeah. I believe that in just the same way that we can take that lens to look at the fact that kids have access to information to do a lot more than we could in our times, I think the same lens should be shone on us as men, in terms of there are a lot of resources available to us. There are workshops being put on. There are seminars being had that actually, if you didn't have that example growing up, there's no excuse really for one to say, I didn't know, and so I'm passing down my generational baggage to my kids. It's up to this generation to actually step in and say no more.
Well, I want to bring a clinical lens in so that we can, show a little bit of trauma-informed, sound a little bit more trauma-informed, because you know what? As somebody who works with men in various capacity, and who have shared with me, I don't want to be like this. I want to show up like this. And when you see how they get all the resources and the response is not to be resourceful in certain kind of situations, then it speaks to the deeper recesses of trauma in my estimation. And lots of times when I talk to men, they don't want to admit that they are traumatized. I think that's the
issue. That's the problem right there.
Right? Not directly admitting that they have any kind of trauma, because men are supposed to be strong.
Yes.
Who am I? Like, I'm not depressed. I don't go through anxiety. And so what you find is a lot of men, in order to cope in society, there's a term that I always teach, especially my men and anybody who is traumatized. I always teach them about dissociation as a coping mechanism. So from my historical lens, and we on here are all Jamaicans, so we know about the transatlantic slave trade, aka the human trafficking ring that happened to African folks who were sent to the Caribbean. Our men were so targeted and beaten down and killed, and the spirit of fighting back was taken out of them. The need to parent was taken away from them. There was an attachment wound that was created in a lot of our ancestral fathers who told them that they shouldn't be present in homes, and so their role is to procreate, go around and get everybody on the plantation impregnated,
so that
because
they can have more slaves.
Your genes look good, you're strong, you're handsome, you're this, you can work on the farm. Yeah. So historically, intergenerationally, a lot of the message that our men are fed is that they're only good for sexual prowess. They're only good for having a great body. And so being able to keep a home, maintaining a home, wasn't something that they learned, but also it's a trauma response for them, where if they were to show up, lots of them, the trauma response is to dissociate, is to shut down, and it's a way of protecting themselves. So if we understood that, and if we had more families or wives and mothers being a part of the conversation to make it safe for men to say, this wasn't, I didn't show up this way because I was feeling this type of way in my body. And then don't forget that workplaces tell our men, oh, speak up about mental health and whatever. And if they do, they are stigmatized, or they have to lose their income, or something has to happen where they can't provide, and then they get these anxious responses that send them into medical help. So showing up takes a kind of vulnerability that a lot of men don't have the emotional muscle to do, and also society isn't prepared to shift their mindset about as well. So that's my little spiel, my psychoeducation to everybody this morning about
said.
that piece.
Very well said, Latoya. Very well said.
Yeah.
See, when we look at, there's a field of science called epigenetics that speaks to that which is below the level of the genetics, so deep within, right? And what you're saying goes straight to that. But here's my thing, because I understand that the genetic piece plays a huge part, and we're carrying a lot of generational burden. I like to refer to it as the backpack, the trauma backpack, right? And that has been passed down for generations, and it's now with us. Are we going to pass that down to our kids? And that's the big question. Like for me, every day for me is also a struggle. Like people, I always use this analogy of, people see the calm on the outside, right? But there's a storm going on the inside. And that storm is to try to work daily to show up in such a way that my kids understand that I don't want to pass my backpack down to you. I want to be able to unpack that so that you don't have to carry it. So that we don't have this, or kids having this conversation 10 or 20 years from now, right? And so it's a matter of leaning in to the journey. It's going to feel uncomfortable. Darn it, it feels very uncomfortable for me sometimes, and I know that. But what is the sacrifice that we're willing to make so that our kids don't have to go through that we're now going through?
I agree. I'm going to get Steve to respond to that. Do you have any feedback for that, Steve, before I drop another one in this?
You know what? The backpack analogy is very real, and it's very true, because I see over 100 people a week.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a lot of fathers sit in my chair.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing you always hear is like, man up.
Oh, yes.
You know, and it is so, it's always, it's intriguing to me when somebody comes in, a father will come in, or even a teenager will come in, and they'll be down. And after I finish cutting the hair and talking with them, you know, they will leave a whole different person.
Let's sound the horn for that one. Hold on.
You see why you were a part of our launch, Steve?
Because we know that the barber shop is a form of therapy in and of itself.
Yeah, but it is it's fun. It's funny why this came up, because I've often asked myself, am I helping, or was it always in them? I just brought it out because guys will come in and I will tell them things. I will talk about things, and even grown man, they will come in and say, Steve, it's rough, and we'll talk. And when we're talking, they'll stop and they'll turn back and they say, I like that. We'll talk about that some more when I come back. And it's funny because I've got guys from Ghana, from West Africa, from Gambia, from Sierra Leone, and we all talk. And it's funny how we all share the same experiences and mannerism of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Because
we're so interconnected, right?
Yes, it's so much so, and like I said, and we're all, Alric said, we're all bringing that backpack. When they come in, I always tell them, listen, whatever it is, brother, just leave it there, and let's just talk, and then when you
wonderful.
Leave, yeah.
Steve, there's a terminology. It goes around so frequently. It's called holding space. It's called holding space. And I don't know if Alric will permit me to share his story.
Of course, go ahead.
So holding space is what in the therapy world we call co-regulation. And co-regulation is kind of like when you're teaching a child how to emotionally soothe themselves or regulate themselves by leading as example, or even standing beside them and being that safe cushion for them to know that, hey, you're okay, I'm here, it's okay to, respond any type of way that you need to respond and still feel loved, right? So what you highlighted was what we called, you were a co-regulator in that role to make someone feel safe enough to just unload or unpack. And I love, I'm sharing that within the context of you saying man up.
that phrase.
Hey. That phrase is a PISS me off phrase over here.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate it.
I remember when our kids were racialized and we did the heavy lifting in Saskatchewan, and it broke us. Yes. My husband he worked 2 jobs. He lost his job. We kind of had to leave our home. We had to pay a mortgage plus rent in a new city. He was worried about his kids. He was worried about me. He was worried about himself. And that had, in the same time, he had a favorite cousin who passed away. And then his uncle was brutally killed. And we couldn't go back to Jamaica. And we made plans to go back to Jamaica. And then COVID hit. And I had a video because my son had said our time expired in Canada and it's time to go home. So we were planning to take this kid home the February, and the airports locked down. I will never forget. And it broke me. And I remember having ideations, if you know what that is. And I don't know what this guy felt or what, but the night when I had to the peak, he would never leave me alone. I was in the sofa and he would never leave me. And that was when I had the confession and I shared it with him. Whoopsie.
And we'll take that right after the break. Thank you for coming back with us. The breaks are always such fun. The power of the sneeze, because Latoya was here fighting a sneeze, and typically when the jingle comes on, she's really dancing. I'm like, why aren't you dancing just now? She's like, no, I'm trying to figure out a sneeze here. But Latoya, you were talking about the story, the journey.
Yeah.
I'll allow you to finish that.
Yeah, Alric, probably this is the first time I'm saying this summatively, but I want to thank you. I'm trying not to get emotional, but you saved my life. You saved my life, and lots of people won't know behind the scenes how within like a few days you made up your mind. We're moving to Ontario. You're saving your family. I remember, Steve, his salary for the month could not afford to pay for the rent for the home that we were going to stay in. I kid you not. His salary for the month could not pay it. And I asked him, How are we going to figure this out? And he says, I don't care. I'll do whatever needs to be figured out. But if we have to leave, we're going to leave. And we tallied up all of our savings. We tallied up everything. And we said, okay, we'll go and we'll figure it out. Because we couldn't get, he was adamant. There were certain communities he wasn't going to raise his kids in. So even when I found a cheaper place to rent, he was like, nah, nope. My kids are going to go have the life that they deserve. Whatever I need to do, I'll do it. And I remember in short order after moving to Ontario, our daughter now had a certain experience. And I remember the fear that I had in sharing it with him. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go to the school and deal with it myself. And the morning, I couldn't hide it from him. So I told him the morning and he came to school with me. And by the evening, I was losing my husband. I've never seen a mental breakdown happen in real life play like that. And I remember losing Alaric in so many ways. The presentation, my husband who was bubbly and whatever, he was like a shell. And then he couldn't work. And then so many things were happening and it was me. And I remember just so the kids couldn't recognize anything, I would wake him up in the morning and say, come down, show up for the kids, and you can do whatever for the rest of the day. I just want the kids to not see that you're broken. And I remember reaching out, thank God, to his younger brother. We drove. I said, I have to save him. I connected him to his younger brother. I called his family in Jamaica, and so many unorthodox way of giving him treatment, because guess what? It was a 6-month wait list to get him to see a mental health practitioner. 6-month wait list. And then they put him on an antidepressant without knowing what his diagnosis was. And then he starts gaining weight and feeling all kinds of stuff. But the long and short was that term, his friend, I was the therapist for my husband. They talk about, oh, you can't treat your family. Well, I had to treat my husband so he wouldn't pass on me. So I was his therapist. I was his everything in that moment. And his best friend, his best friend, who is a female, whom he's known for years, even before me, she came. And after she left, I don't remember what happened, but he was having like a flashback or something. He was off from work and she called. And the way in which she responded to him when he finally shared that he was struggling emotionally was to tell him that, yo, you need to man up. You need to man up. Now, bear in mind that I sat and I heard conversations between he and her, and one of the reasons she traveled to stay with us was because she herself went through a mental health crisis with her work and needed to take a break. And Eric was there for her through everything, every single thing. And this woman said to my husband, man up. It broke me. It broke him. And it showed the disparity in society when it comes to men showing any form of vulnerability and the price you have to pay if you decide that I'm going to prioritize me. You lose your friends, you lose whatever. And the friendship is no longer there, but I cannot imagine what it feels like to lose his oldest friend. Well, happy riddance to her for sure. If you're listening, bye. But anyway, anyways, the point is that term, man up, should be a lethal nuclear term that is banned.
Yes. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I brought that up, because, you know, there a lot of times guys will come in and they'll be talking to me, and then the same thing that you're saying, Latoya. And you know, first of all, let me just take it back. I'm going way back to when you opened the clinic, and when I was a part of it, and I was honored that you guys have me being a part of that. And I listened to something that you said when you're making me speak before you cut the ribbon, and it resonated with me, stayed with me, and it's still with me. You know, the journey that your guys' journey from Saskatchewan till now, and it is something that I every time you walk in the shop, Alric, or Latoya walks in, I see it, and I kind of live it in my mind, and it makes me stronger because I say to myself, listen, I may be going through some things, but you guys went through some stuff. because I've been in Canada for over 35 years. I went to the whole school system.
Yeah.
When I was one of only one black in the school, sometimes in elementary school.
Yeah.
You know, and sorry, junior high. I came up in junior high.
Yeah.
There was two black guys, myself and a guy named Kevin Bromwell. And high school, I started seeing more black. But being out in small Edmonton when it was smaller, I didn't face a lot of racism. Maybe it's behind my back or whatnot. But what you guys went through, I didn't experience that, and I've been here for so long. And to go through that and still rise, you know, they say that behind every strong man is a strong woman, but behind every strong woman is also a strong man. So it goes hand in hand. And you guys came together as a unit and became an atomic bomb. That when it exploded,
let's drop a bomb for that.
Things happen. Yeah, you know, meaning people hear bomb explode. Yeah,
oh, that's not the bomb. Let's do the smash.
Yeah. You know, yeah. When things explode, it doesn't always have to be bad. When they explode, explode in a good way.
Yes, I agree.
And I see it, you know, and that's what it is. And don't forget, we carry the burden with us. And I shouldn't say a burden, but in some society, it is a burden to them. Being born black,
yeah,
so one strike against us, and now we have to go out there and be even more. So whether it be a mother, a father, whether it's trying to keep your family together, because that is the hardest part to do. And you guys came together, and that's an example of what black strength is.
Thank you.
Unity is the foundation of survival. A chain is as strong as weakest link.
Thank you, Steve. Shout out to Nathan down there.
Yes.
Big G's. I can't call him Big G when he's with his nephew. So Greg's nephew. But thank you so much, Steve, for highlighting that. And there are some feedbacks in the comment section. The comment section is hot today. You see, we may not always have Father's Day being highlighted, but this is probably the most comments we've had on a segment. But Akila is also here, and she says, I agree. Moving to certain neighborhoods is a problem. I'm so proud of you. She's probably talking to you, Alaric, as a father for standing by that. I can tell you how many experience I've had to experience as a woman just for living in a less fortunate neighborhood. Kudos to you for understanding. She also says, you know, she's also recognizing that man up, even though it has a negative connotation, sometimes the intention isn't always negative. Sometimes the intention is to really to say, be strong. It's seen as an encouragement. I always like when Alaric says this terminology. He taught me this many years ago. He says, you know, everybody is going through ish. Some of us just wear it a little bit better. So thank you for reaffirming that, Steve.
Yes.
Can you believe that we're at the end of our
right?
show?
Oh, goodness.
Oh, my God. Time flies fast when you're having fun.
Oh, goodness.
Alaric.
Yes, it's been an amazing ride this morning. Thank you for joining us on this ride, Steve, and just for affirming that, you know, this journey of fatherhood is not one that's easy. It's one that comes with a lot of bumps, twists, and turns along the way, right? But it's about being intentional about what we want for our kids, the future generation, and ensuring that despite the struggles that we go through, that our kids may not have to go through that as well.
Yes. And to you, Alaric, and to Steve, I've had my personal lived experiences with both of you, and I just want you to know that you're both very impactful men. So as you're going out there today, I hope your children know how blessed they are to have you. And for the fathers out there who are listening, we are in the business of breaking generational reenactments. I don't call it cursed. I call it reenactments. So as we are about to sign out, we want to say that regular programming continues after this with Miss Laura.
With the Latin hour.
On the Latin hour. Big G is away.
Yes, and
having fun.
And so on Friday, we'll be back with the next 48 with Special K. And on Saturday, the weekend morning show, we'll be back with Danny. And of course, Latoya and I will be back here with a special guest next week to continue unpacking a lot of these things.
So next week we have another guest. I think LeVar is joining us. And then the following week we have my friend from Ghana who did some research on the disparity in breast cancer,
African American
breast cancer screening here in Canada as it relates to Black women. So be sure to tune in. We'll have my friend Kweku here with us. And we'll be away on break for July, the first 3 weeks in July. And Big G will hold down the fort for us. But we thank everybody for joining us and peace out.
To take us out, just to say thank you to the barber here, we're going to be taking Christopher Martin and the Chill Spot.